Welcome to your 12-minute HR lesson YouTube edition. This is where we take one of our more popular podcasts and we match it with a video of me doing something vaguely interesting, vaguely exciting. This time, this was an adventure in my little boat. I headed off and this one didn't go so well. The launch definitely didn't go to plan. I got out in the bay to discover there's a very big lightning storm coming, maybe my way, so I changed plans, but found this beautiful little isolated beach that I spent the night on. Have a watch.
Welcome to your 12-minute HR podcast. Today, we're talking about squeaky wheels. We're talking about those people who ask for things before you're ready to give them, or they ask for things that you otherwise wouldn't have given. The people who agitate and ask, and we're going to answer the questions, are they right to do so, and are they right to have it now? Interested? Have this all the time? Bet you do. So let's go. Today's topic, there is only one way of tackling this. There is only one story. There's many examples. But in terms of universal wisdom on this one, there is only one story that can be discussed. And that is the story of the prodigal son. So it goes like this. Rich farmer, 2 sons. The younger son is bored. He's restless. He wants to see the world. He doesn't want to stay and work the farm. He doesn't want to wait for what is owed to him. So he goes to see his father and says, I want my inheritance now. So the father somehow manages to rustle up, liquidate half of his stuff, gives it to his younger son. The younger son heads off to the world with half the family fortune. And he goes to the city and he spends it and he uses it and he lives a debaucherous lifestyle. He spends all of his money, wastes it, lives a life of destitution, and then eventually bites his tongue, buries his pride, goes back to his father and begs to work as a farmhand because he realizes the slaves and the servants on his father's farm were living better than he was. So he goes back to see his father to beg to be a stable hand. Instead, his father celebrates his return, has a great feast, slaughters the fattened ox for him, and puts him back where he was before. In this process, the older son comes to the father and says, what the hell? I didn't waste all of our money. I've been here working. He's ruined everything, yet you're treating him like he's done nothing wrong. He is not getting the consequences of his own actions. And the father says, yes, that's true, but he was lost, and now he is found, and I have forgiven him, and he is welcome back. So there's lots to discuss and lots to unpack, and you could spend forever deep diving, and I'm sure there's many biblical scholars would deep dive and have deep dived on the story and the question of the prodigal son. I want to talk about the older brother, because you could stop anyone in the street, put this to them, and say, how right was the older son? And in comparison to that particular proposition, how wrong was the father? And I would strongly suspect everyone would say, yes, the older son was 100% right in his, what the hell, why is he getting all the things that he has thrown away? And myself, who did not throw those things away, why am I being punished by comparison? The older son is right. Let's take that as a given. He is right to say, this is unfair and this is unjust. One of the arguments put forward about the prodigal son is, yes, it is unjust, but that doesn't matter. It's not about justice. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's about the celebration and the valuing of lost sheep. Because that is why the father is so joyous. because he had lost a family member, and the family member has come back to him, and he's deliberately choosing not to pass judgment on his son, but to set judgment aside and just celebrate. From the story of the prodigal son, we can see two things that happen in the workplace all the time. One is the topic of this podcast: squeaky wheel gets the grease. The second that we're going to touch on is that fairness is comparative, and we're going to touch on that, but we probably need to talk about that in greater depth another time. We can see the son who wants loudly to get what he wants ahead of others. He is demanding something just for him, and he is demanding something before it's due. He's saying, I want what is due to me, not when it is due, I want it now. I want. It suits me and it suits my interests for me to have this now. I am squeaking, I want grease. You may have heard the saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. That is essentially the person who complains gets the solution. By someone being loud and vocal and wanting what they want, they get it. The implication being they get it before others. They get it instead of others. Those that complain get resolution, not because they are the most deserving, but because they are the loudest in complaining. There is a clear comparison here with the prodigal son. We have two people that will be due something, but one of them complains and gets it ahead of the other, not because he deserves it more, he deserves it equally, but he gets it because he complains loudly and the dad acquiesces. Do we see this in the workplace? Yes. We see this frequently, that people complaining or people griping or people demanding are more likely to get resolution to their problems, not because they deserve it more, but because they are the ones doing the complaining. Now, let me do something that I should do a little bit more often. I'm going to put a trade unionist in the corner. What do I mean by that? I mean, pretend you and I are having this conversation in the presence of a trade unionist, and what would they pipe up and say? They would pipe up and say, well, hang on. People are allowed to ask for their own interests. They shouldn't be dutiful servants who happily accept what you give them. They should be entitled to ask for what they deserve, or what they feel they deserve. And it shouldn't be seen as disloyalty to do so. And I agree. So let's not take the asking as wrong. People should be entitled to, and people should seek to bargain to what suits their own interests, or fix problems. And putting on our HR hat, we want to know about people's problems so we can fix them so that they don't walk, or so that they don't disengage. What is the problem that we need to keep an eye on when it comes to the squeaky wheel problem? The squeaky wheel is not the friction that we have a problem with. It's not that they are asking for something. The problem that we need to be mindful of is them getting it ahead of others because they complained. So, what is the takeaway from the squeaky wheel analogy? There's two things I want you to think about. If someone is complaining, if we have a squeaky wheel, if we are getting negative feedback, if we are getting someone bargaining for more, what are the non-squeaking wheels that we need to think about? It's very easy, very simple to look at the person making a complaint and going, okay, we have an issue, we have a problem, we're going to lose them, what do we need to do? You need to think about the dog that doesn't bark in the night. You need to think about the people who aren't saying something, but equally could. So, I'm not against squeaky wheels. I just think before we start applying grease, we need to look at who else might need grease just as much or as well as this individual person. Think about the older son who will have a sense of injustice over what has happened. Who are the people who are biding their time, who are dutifully waiting for when things are due, and because they waited dutifully, they risk missing out. at one stage I've got to do a whole thing on equity theory. But in the meantime, think about yourself. Whenever you are problem solving in the workplace, whenever you are doing that reactive HR process of going, we have an issue, how can we fix it? I've got some grease, I've got some promotions, I've got some increased salary, I've got some benefits, or there's some approvals to recruit that we need to promote, or there's some additional recruitment we need to do in this area. Ask yourself 2 questions. Who are the wheels who are not squeaking but could be? The other is, how are those wheels going to react if I only grease this one? There's a pretty good chance that you're listening to that going, oh yeah, but what about this situation? What about this? And oh yes, there's also this and also that. And he didn't talk about that, and I thought he would have. And that's totally true. The reality is there's always lots of different circumstances. One of the things I probably should have talked about is the paralysis you can find yourself in if you're trying to make sure that everybody's happy. If your criteria is fixing every problem, you end up fixing none. So that's something to weigh against it, but that's probably a topic for another day. Otherwise, thank you for listening. We have our services that we offer. We have our courses that we offer. If you're interested, check out our website, pragmatichrm.nz. See what we can do for you, see how we can help. Otherwise, like us, post us, repost us, hire a billboard for us. I think that's definitely something you should do for me. If not, I'll catch you next time.